I'm talking about the rare species today. A species that nests together, hunts and gathers equally for its family. Without making a distinction between male and female, both are concerned with babies, children, relatives, and the question of what they need to survive the next few days. Are you thinking of penguins, where the male incubates the eggs? Or flamingos, who share parenting 50-50? No, I'm talking about us, humans. I'm talking about the rare species of parents who's trying to share responsibility, to be equal, to stay independent. Let's have a look at this pie chart. It shows how parents in Switzerland split up their paid employment. The biggest section of the pie chart is made up with models in which father works full-time and mother's part-time, specifically 50%. In 16% of families, the mother is not employed. Surprisingly, isn't it? My husband and I are represented in the smallest section of the pie chart. He works part-time, I work full-time. Only 2% of families in our country choose that model. And that was already the case 10 years ago. You see, we're growing at an enormous rate. So, why have we chosen to belong to this rare species? We've asked ourselves that question more often than we would have thought, because we have been asked and commented continuously over the last 5 years. Wow, cool. Why are you doing this to yourself? I know a whole range of reactions to our model. But why on earth did I decide to be part of it? The reason lies quite simply in an experience that still makes me think today. I was 16 years old in my first year during my apprenticeship at the bank. It was a normal Monday morning when a familiar face appeared at my counter. The woman wanted to collect her household money, like every week. But this time, when I entered the amount, the system reported no withdrawal to spouse. I had to get her account manager, and in the course of conversation, I realized her husband had blocked the account for her. I mean, imagine. In tears, she asked us, how am I supposed to put food on the table for our children now? We had no answer. This is 22 years ago, and it still makes me think today, because it still happens today. By their own admission, not even half of all women of working age in our country earn enough to make a living independently. 1 in 5 even explicitly states that they cannot afford to separate from their partner for financial reasons. In the case of a separation, as with the lady at the cash register, when push comes to shove, many more women realize that they are not able to look after themselves. What does it do to us when we are financially dependent in a relationship? What does it do to us consciously and unconsciously? This experience at the bank triggered something in me. Being dependent on a partner, I don't want that, ever. After my apprenticeship, I became a journalist. Years later, a female top shot told me after an interview, "You're an ambitious woman. Choose your partner well." Honestly, I found the tip a bit useless back then. I mean, what is a well-chosen partner? Today I know I chose my partner well. My husband and I met relatively late, so we began talking about starting a family and what we wanted it to be like relatively early. We talked about our ideas of family, standard of living, leisure time, our values, wishes, and ambitions. Now, you do probably have a hard time believing me that we actually met on Tinder. But anyway, during my first pregnancy, I got a job offer. It felt like this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity I'd always dreamed of. 8 months pregnant, this cool offer, a future boss who believed in me, and the enthusiasm that my husband would cover my back. We decided that I would take that job, and my husband would work 80%. And we have been living in our model ever since. Is it worth it? Yes, it is worth it, because I've always kept going. Instead of cutting back, I got promoted. Those years between 35 and 50 are an important phase in our careers. It is the time when we can reap from what we sow. Why should we miss that? The time spent away from our children, childcare costs, tax considerations, keep us questioning if going back to work is worthwhile. But what does it do to us if it doesn't seem worth it? Let's have a look at this chart. Potential calculation shows who has the chances of a financially carefree life, Ben, and who does not, Jen. Women do reasonably well up to the age of 35. Men pick up speed there and only get more prosperous. While women, except for the growth years between 50 and 60, just get poorer and poorer. Men only get richer after becoming fathers. Women only get poorer after becoming mothers. Why is that in 2022? Pay gap, time off due to family commitments, part-time workload, no investments. These are the four main reasons for this gap. And you see, this gap continues to grow until death, because the occupational pension scheme reproduces inequalities from working life. Since women do not perform the same amount of paid work and do not earn the same amount, they get a significantly lower pension. In our country, a third less. How can we avoid ending up like Ben and Jen? Or shall we say bravo to Ben? These sections of the pie chart have to be distributed differently to close this gap. Is there hope? In 2007, for the first time, more female than male students graduated in Swiss universities for the first time. Ever since, female students have made up the greater proportion at our universities. But you know what? The surprising fact is that the rate of families with a full-time working father and the part-time working mother is still exactly the same as 10 years ago, 50%. What does it do to us when still half of our female friends cut back and end up financially dependent after motherhood? In general, at home, we are still far from equal. Fathers contribute 3/4 to the household income. Mothers still spend almost twice as much time with childcare and housework. This is how I came to my TEDx topic in the first place. I asked myself, why in Switzerland, the most innovative country in the world, still so many parents choose a conservative role? Of course, our system is not ready for equal parenting, but we don't seem ready either. 91% in our country believe a child suffers when the mother works full-time. Now you know why our species is so rare. Almost 50% believe a child suffers when the mother works for pay at all. I mean, wow! Women like us should probably apologize on a daily basis that we want to earn our own money. Shall I tell you what? Sorry for not being sorry. Which model makes the family happy? Makes me happy. Often the focus is on time, maximizing time with the family, as if time alone would make us happy. I don't think it does. There are studies showing that satisfaction does not increase with the part-time workload. On the contrary, with a 50% employment dissatisfaction is at its highest. Honestly, I'm not really surprised. Being responsible for parenting and doing most of the housework is just as challenging as a lot of highly paid jobs. And there is this lack of personal and financial recognition for it. I experienced this during my 2 maternity leaves. What does a 50% job mean for parents? Fewer career opportunities, a lot of stress because one wants to be fair to everyone, and too little pay to outsource certain work. Working 2.5 days sounds more stressful to me than working Monday to Friday. I talked about happiness before. I'm sure being happy has a huge impact on our children's happiness. Can it be wrong to model for them that a fulfilling professional life is important and fun? I grew up in a small town in the Swiss mountains. We were a bunch of smart girls in class. But quite a few of us already said in secondary school, after my apprenticeship, I want to earn some money, travel a bit, and then have a family. And they said it so convincingly that it sounded like a clear demarcation from working life. Why do we so often imagine a career with breaks, with interruptions due to kids? With breaks, limitations, and the thesis that our development is less important? I'm sure if we plan a continuous career without major breaks, our path will develop quite differently than if we anticipate a cutback from the beginning. Speaking about cutting back, who of you staying a bit more at home gets paid for that? I mean, with a real salary. I'm not talking about household money. What is an adequate salary for someone who starts his day with sunrise and still works when everybody else is in bed? I asked my friend, she's a fiduciary. Let me quote her. If you can't afford paying your partner what you would pay a daycare or a nanny, you can't afford the model you're trying, she said. And she knew I was waiting for a sentence a bit less harsh. And then she said, if parents don't want to bother about finance, they should definitely work both. I said, well, yeah, that might reduce complexity, I'd say. Then she said, and you really need to tell them, if parents are not married, there's two options. Get married immediately or go back to work immediately. Because inequalities even multiply when parents are not married. So I told you. My husband and I are happy with our model because we each have our independence and freedom. Of course, we also argue about how we deal with the 2-year-old who's really into her terrible twos right now, of course. Yeah, but it's peanuts because we always treat each other as equals. Our recipe is we're not perfectionists. I have got used to the way he folds my shirts, and he has got used to the fact that I always forget the cutlery when I empty the dishwasher. Our motto is much more, we'll get it done somehow. And this is how we manage, even when a child is sick or when we have to go on a business trip. As we have no immediate family nearby, it's always the two of us who organize things. And we firmly believe that exposing our kids to other kids in daycare is an enriching experience. Even though 91% of the Swiss probably would think different. Talking about daycare, who of you paying daycare? There's a lot of you paying daycare probably. You know we should definitely talk about why daycare is so expensive, why family care work is not recognized sufficiently, and why professions that predominantly women choose are paid less, and. These are all factors that cause us women to take the back seat more often. But this back seat is dangerous for us. Longer life expectancy, divorce rate, separation, so many of us end up solely responsible for their finances. When we earn our own money and build up knowledge in investing it, when we stand on our own 2 feet and remain financially independent, we all move forward. Because equality begins with financial independence. Those of you planning a family, pregnant or having children, may be saying now, oof, I wouldn't want her life or her husband's life. We can't do that. We don't want to do that. Understand me correctly. I'm not saying that we should all become full-time working mothers now. What I'm saying is that we should divide this pie more evenly. But that requires us to talk. Those yellow sections of the pie only expand when we talk. When we talk about money and ambition with our well-chosen partner. When we talk about what financial independence and dependence mean for us, both of us. And when we talk about what we really want and what others expect us to do. My husband and I have a simple deal. It is, our model is valid until we renegotiate it again. I love being a mother so much, but I also love being a partner, friend, colleague, and boss. I love my independence. Let's divide this pie more evenly. Don't just take the section that is obvious. Take the section that makes you independent and happy.